All right, Aldis Hodge. This show, Underground, is a runaway success. No pun intended. um, so, when you guys were working on this show, did you realize you were working on something that would have this kind of a broad appeal? I mean, I'm sure you knew you were working on something special, but did you
Yeah.
know that?
We definitely knew we were working on something really great. We didn't understand that it would have this kind of appeal, but we did hope. And that's something we worked for specifically because, look, devil's in the details, man. And we knew with this particular subject matter, a lot of people were automatically averse to it because they think they've already seen it before. And our biggest challenge was to let people know, like, you haven't seen it before and you haven't seen this type of execution. And just on the subject matter in general, we've seen bits and pieces of it, but in American society, we have not seen enough, I don't think, because we haven't seen all these different sides to it, you know? And I think because we present that with this series, that's why it's so interesting to people, because it intrigues them. Whether they agree with what's going on, you know, whether it's hard to watch or not, they're intrigued because they're learning so much new stuff. And I kind of think that's where we win as far as we're considered a success. I don't know why that's going on. AOL. I was looking at AOL reading my directions for how to get into this little Google Hangout.
Oh,
Yeah. But I think that I think our appeal really came from how brilliantly executed the storytelling is, along with the types of characters there are. Because, I mean, Misha Green and Joe Pakaski, of course, are creators and executive producers and writers. They knocked out every script, and they did such a great job with giving us so many options as an audience.
Mm-hmm. What's extraordinary about it is, it is about a very important subject, and a subject that can be uncomfortable to watch at times, but it's also a really, in ways, entertaining show, because you're watching it riveted, you're rooting for these characters. It plays like, you're welcome. Yeah. It plays like an adventure at times.
Yeah.
So
well, that was sorry not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
That was first and foremost our main priority, because this is what we were focused on. How does this show look? How does this, immediately read to people, people who are not interested in this particular subject matter? How does it apply to them? And we try to get people to understand, first and foremost, this is an action show. It's an action show, hands down. Secondly, in my opinion, it is a psychological thriller, because you're sitting here playing a game of Clue or Who Done It with how people think and what their next move is, which is, unconventional. You don't know how to predict it. So I think in that sense, the show is a bit of an outlier, because I feel like maybe a lot of people thought it was going to be a heavy, slow drama, and we are the exact opposite of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. There is a duality to all the characters that's really interesting. I mean, talking about your character in particular, you're sort of the hero of the piece.
I don't know, but thank you for saying so.
Yeah, well, one of the heroes of the piece. You're the leader of, you're the one who sets things into motion.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to watch the way that you figure things out, especially in the beginning episodes. When you find this map and you're piecing together what it means, and you're working on your feet. So talk a bit about that, about playing that.
Well, that's kind of what attracted me to the role in general, just because I saw how smart this character was, and that's what I really wanted to, I wanted to represent that when it came to representing this particular culture in this particular time frame for American history. I wanted to show all of that we haven't seen, and these people were brilliant. They were cultured for what little they had. They were tacticians, naturally. And he's just so cunning and just beguiling and smart when it comes to how he needs to play all these people around him like chess pieces. And he's learning as he goes along. I think this entire journey for this first season, he's learning about himself a little bit because, of course, he's tried to run before, has been unsuccessful. So that's why he said, I need to go recruit some people at the plantation because they have all these different skills that I need. And at first it's like, you know, they depended on him. But I think along the way, at least for me personally, I feel like he depended on them, just growing as a man, because he grew in mercy. He grew in understanding. He grew in compassion for dealing with all these people and having them obligated to him and his path, you know? So I loved just the complexity in him trying to figure out what choice to make and trying to decide whether or not it is the right choice, because there's no easy choice. You know, we can run all day, but if we get free, there's people that have to pay the price. And as people have seen, even though we do run, the journey is very dangerous and you may lose some folks along the way. So there's just no easy choices. And that is what's kind of brilliant about him.
Yeah, and you know, there's this really great scene in the first episode. I remember when we first meet your character, he's run away and he's been taken back to the plantation and he's being whipped and beaten and he's acting in one way towards the slave owners, and then all of a sudden it drops as soon as they leave the room.
Yeah, that sold me.
Yeah,
that sold me. I was like, what? I've never seen this.
Yeah,
that's the moment that really sold me, man, because it showed so much strength, not just of him, but you know, for Black Americans back in that day, what they had to deal with on a regular basis. And he figured out how to beat the game. He said, I know how to survive this. And even though this may continue happening to me, I'm strong enough to supersede the pain. As an individual, I know how to get past this. And that, I mean, that moment said so much just for me as an observer. I couldn't wait to get down with it and just play it. And I hope I played it well enough where everybody felt what I felt when I first read it. But it said so much just about his fortitude, not only his, but just, again, you know, Black American culture back in, you know, the 1850s. They were stronger than the whips and the chains. So
absolutely.
It just made me so proud.
Absolutely. There's such a great cast in this show. It's
phenomenal cast.
Yeah. I want to talk about a couple of people who you have some really great scenes with. Janae Smollett-Bell.
Yep.
Talk about your two characters and the relationship they have.
I can't say too much because we still have these last two episodes.
Right.
I will say what we have seen thus far is pretty awesome. I like the fact that they've been in this space together for so long and they haven't really verbally spoken to one another. So everything has kind of been, I feel they have a spiritual connection that's spoken loudest this entire time. And as you see in the first episode, when Noah is recruiting, he really finds that connection with her character because he sees her take the whips and the lashes for a little brother. And he says, mentally, it's like, okay, she is like me. She is willing to take the punishment just to get by and do what's necessary so we can have a shot. You know, she's willing to do what's necessary to create an opportunity to make things happen. So I feel like Noah's kind of found a kindred spirit in Rosalie along the way. And what's kind of evolving for them along the journey is new for both of them, because I'm not even sure either one of them has been in this space of feeling emotionally connected to someone in the sense of romance or dependence, emotional dependence, you know? And they're discovering that as well as trying to fight for survival. They're fighting for themselves individually, but they also end up fighting for one another because it's like, look, if I'm gonna make it, you have to make it. Because otherwise, if you don't make it, there's no point to this, you know? And I love that because it's not a very traditional love story in any sense. It's something they have to fight for. It's something that they really have to earn. And in the midst of it, there's so much that can tear it down because they don't even know the answer yet to what love is or what love means. And they don't even know what they mean to each other yet. Mm-hmm. And there's so many things in the middle that can distort that. But as we've seen, like in this last episode, where Noah was all shot up, and beat down, Rosalie, she got gangster with it. She was like, look, I ain't leaving Noah. This ain't gonna happen without Noah. And that was a moment where she was forced to not only step up as a leader because Noah was down, but also she had to step up, I think, personally, and say, how much does this person mean to me? What am I willing to do? Because she put herself in a situation where she could very well have been killed, trying to go get some medicine to save Noah's life. So she was willing to make that sacrifice, but that's why Noah chose her, or rather why they chose each other.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So on the other end of that spectrum is your interactions with Alano Miller.
Yeah.
I just talked to him a couple of weeks ago. Talk about a guy who'll do anything to survive. And your scenes together are so great, because there's this.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, there's this friction between the two of you. You're working together sometimes. You don't know what the guy's motivations are. Talk a bit about that.
Well, it's always great fun when you have that relationship in a show where it can blow up at any moment. That is them. They're forced to work together because they're both, regardless of how they feel, the majority of the outside world looks at them the exact same. So they have to depend on one another to get this thing done. But there's this mutual disdain that they have. And it's weird. I feel like both of those characters are similar in that they have been through so many tumultuous situations where they feel alone and have felt alone for a long time. They treated it differently. Noah, he's managed to survive mentally in a very specific way, and as has Kato, but the way they do it, their moral grounds are very different. They're kind of opposite. That's why they butt heads. It's like, we got to make this thing happen, but you're willing to sacrifice everybody to get this thing done so you can save yourself. I'm willing to sacrifice myself so everybody can, and that's kind of where they clash. But at the same time, there's an understanding, because I feel like there is a kinship. I do hope we get to explore it later in seasons where we find out how similar they actually are in some ways, because there's a reason they haven't killed each other yet. There's a sense of respect there, and we haven't explored it yet, and we're going to make the audience wait for that. You got to earn it. But, there's a reason that they do what they do. Because Noah is smart enough to know. And granted, Noah has his moments where he's like, look, some people just got to go, know. But he's smart enough to know when he has a bad cog in the machine. And I know for some reason he still sees some value in Kato that I'm not sure we've defined yet. Mm-hmm. And I think we'll explore that later on. But it's just great now having it undefined, because we still have this air of tension that is unpredictable. And me, even as an actor, I have no idea what's going to happen next with him. So I'm sitting there reading scripts like, what's going to happen? But also at the same time, I mean, as necessary as Noah's story is to be told, Kato's story is equally necessary, because there was that character. That character was validated and very, very relevant to the time. It was very honest in that particular space. And you have to ask, what would make somebody become that way? And it speaks to the air of I guess the distortion of humane treatment, mentally. What we do externally affects us internally, and what was done to him so terribly that he can go to this space where he just feels like he's so alone. in the same space as Noah, where Noah feels so alone at times. And I love that because, again, it speaks to the fact that it is psychological thriller. And we're unfolding these characters and figuring out who are they and why are they. And Noah and Kato, their relationship speaks to a lot of the way, people relate to one another today. And unfortunately, in a lot of, Black culture and Black society today, how people still relate to one another, it speaks to a lot of those problems and those unsound issues that people have yet to resolve.
Yeah, and I mean, this show really does, I think part of its appeal is that it does strike a chord with what's going on today. I mean, these issues are very much at the forefront again in our society.
You could play a symphony with all the chords it strikes, brother.
So, what do you think this show can do to enlighten people or open their minds or, start a conversation?
I mean, without sounding, pardon my hubris, but and I hope I don't sound conceited, but I think it's definitely started the conversation already, in that people are really sort of dissecting why we have these problems. And I know this particular portion of American history is probably one of the most unresolved portions of American history, probably the most uncomfortable subject to talk about. That's why whenever you have a project regarding enslavement, people are always like, well, why another one? Guess what? There's not that many. I can count like on two hands how many there have been in the last 20 years that people have really personally connected to. The reason it makes a lot of noise is just because it's so unresolved. People are afraid to challenge this because they feel like they're going to engage personal guilt or shame. But really, I feel like it's necessary to challenge this particular subject matter because it hasn't gone away yet. And if you're talking about looking at the future of America, when America as it stands today is still so separated and dissected, we have a real big problem. We need to handle it. So I feel like the show definitely addresses that issue, and the fact that it's really about the first integrated civil rights movement. So that's what pushed us to where we are today, and I feel like we're good. We can be so much better, but it deals in understanding and recognizing one another as a society. We are Americans, plain and simple. But I feel like we're still so separated culturally in this country and not recognizing that. I was born here. There's no reason that I shouldn't have as much claim or as much pride in being here, or there's no reason I should have less recognition for being an American, because I'll tell you this much. If I go anywhere across the world, they don't say, oh, you're African American. They say you're American. I'm American American. I go to Africa, they're like, you're not African American. You're not African. No, you admit it. Yes. And there's a reason for that. But I'm acknowledged more by foreigners for being a part of my own country than I am by citizens of my own country. There is an issue there. It's so weird. And I think that the show kind of brings out the ugliness and moral dissension and how we may treat one another based off of fear and judgment. Something so simple as, I don't understand you. So rather than engaging what you are, I'm going to reject everything about you. And because I fear you, I need to control you, overpower you. I need to command you and bend you to my will. And I feel like that's where slavery came out of anyway. It was like, I don't understand. Y'all look different. Y'all speak a whole different language. You worship a different God. I don't get it. So I'm just come over here and put some chains on you and make you do what I feel like until I feel comfortable enough to be around you. It's so sad that in today's time, I don't even like to say race, because I regard us as we are all the human race. So there you go. But different cultural issues. It's so sad that people still aren't on board with the fact that we need to embrace cultural indifferences and change, or rather, people don't understand how dangerous it is not to embrace it. You know, and speaking specifically to the 1850s, you know, everybody, I think another part of the culture, cultural change and shift in conversation that people are having, and this is selfishly my ambition, people say that they don't want to see slave show again. Because, yes, I feel like slave is, I mean, it's definitely a dirty word, but, and crazy enough, slavery is still very relevant and present today. I think it's like a $35 billion industry on the black market, which is terrible. But slave is a word made up for a machine. These people were enslaved. They were enslaved. It gives somebody accountability. It gives somebody responsibility for having done something to someone. And when you say this person is enslaved, you see the humanity of who they are. You say, oh, you're an actual person. You have a soul. You have ambitions and dreams. You live, you love, you cry. You know, I get it. You know, I can feel connected. And I think that's what is executed so well with the show, because we see the human side of who these people are. We've never really seen their stories before in that way. We've seen the victimization of them, but now we're just seeing the revolution come out of them. Yeah. You know, we see the power of these people, which is what I really responded to. That was the most attractive thing to me about this, was that I was like, wow, as a, you know, I'm almost 30 and I'm, you know, a Black American male, and there's so much that I didn't know about this time frame. And our younger generation is getting to see that because they don't teach it in schools. And I remember being a kid like, so y'all gonna teach me about George Washington and Dwight D. Eisenhower, but I can't, you know, I was like, where are all the Black people? I'm 8 years old in my school asking that. They used to send me home and tell my mom, you need to send him to school with a book because he's not, he needs more work to do. I'm like, yo, you're the school. Give me more work to do. But yeah, I just feel like this generation may be lacking and missing out on what our culture really is. And it's nice to have something like this to represent what the history was, because people see this and then they have something to be proud of. You know, there's a lot missing as far as being proud of what you are, what you look like, you know, regardless of what size you are, you know, just looking in the mirror and loving yourself and saying, I'm beautiful, I'm proud of being what I am. And, you know, I need to walk with that. I need to carry that every day. There's a lot of our youth that don't have that. And it's because they haven't had great representation of where they came from. And I'm talking about Americans all over, you know, Black Americans who went through this, white Americans who, of course, there's the ugly side of, you know, the first was Europeans, and then eventually after a couple generations, it became just Americans, but white Americans enslaving Black Americans. There's that side. But then you also have the beautiful side of white Americans who didn't agree with this. And they said, I'm going to raise up, and I don't agree with this. I'm going to make a stand. I'm going to do something. There's a lot of people who don't understand that part of it. They don't get that side. And they need to. It's so important, you know, because it shows the true essence of us working together as a culture, as American culture. Sorry, I'm long-winded, brother. I'll talk a lot. I'll talk all day. No. Put it like a cut, a check in there.
No, man, no. Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think what's incredible about the show is what really adds to its effect is its authenticity and its immediacy as well, you know.
I like that. I'm going to use that.
Well, thank you so much, and congratulations on the show. Congratulations on being picked up for a second season.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. I can't wait to see how it ends.
Thank you. All right, brother. Be easy.
All right. Take care. Thank you.